in a bombshell report released by the CIA, the intelligence agency now believes that COVID-19 most likely originated from a lab in Wuhan, China.
Yeah, it's a major reversal for the United States, which is now pointing the finger directly at China as tensions between the two powers rise.
For more, former CIA officer Mike Baker joins us live from Boise, Idaho. Good morning to you. One of the interesting things about this report is the CIA doesn't say that they know this was deliberate or an accidental leaking of COVID.
Yeah, I mean, that's at this stage, I don't think that really matters, right? Because what we do know is that, one way or the other, the Chinese regime under Xi Jinping has not been transparent in any shape or form, right? And they've gotten away with it, right? So millions of people died, and if this had happened as a result of a lab in Australia or a lab in the US or a lab in the UK, the world, would have spent the past several years kicking that country in the backside repeatedly and consistently. The Chinese regime seems to have gotten a free pass for this. So whether they intended to do it or whether, and I don't believe that they actually did, I think it was probably an accidental release. But at the end of the day, they provided no assistance. And the problem there is, the next time we have a pandemic, and we will have a pandemic, we won't be as fully prepared as we should be because they haven't cooperated. They haven't worked with the rest of the world.
So it's one thing for the CIA to say that's their intelligence. It's very unlikely the Chinese government's going to admit to this, right? So what happens now?
Yeah, probably nothing. That's a very unsatisfactory answer, I think, for a lot of people. But just trying to be pragmatic in the way that governments work, inside this global community of nations, if you want to call it that. I don't think anything really is going to happen. Look, the CIA assessment that they've just released, they caveat it a little bit. They say, well, we have low confidence in this, but we are releasing this information. They're not indicating that they have new intelligence, but look, this is supporting an assessment from the FBI in the U.S., from the Department of Energy in the U.S., and from others who also believe that this was a lab leak. And look, there was talk about a lab leak well before COVID really broke through, right? So early on, the year before it happened, there were already people saying, well, we've got this Wuhan lab. We've had problems with safety and security and conduct issues there at the lab before that are documented. So it is highly likely that this came from the lab, but then suddenly the narrative shut that down. And in part, I think it shut it down because it was inconvenient from a political perspective in the U.S., which had helped to fund the lab. So there's a lot left here to uncover. I just don't think it will be uncovered.
OK, the report was done under the Biden era. Trump has insisted it be released. Will he do anything about this now?
Well, I think he'll push. If any, certainly the Biden administration wouldn't push. So I think if anyone's going to push the Chinese regime, we have a much better chance of that happening under the new administration, the Trump administration. You could argue that one of the reasons why it was released because we've now got a new director at the CIA, John Radcliffe, and he has talked about this and the importance of providing some level of transparency around it. So I think that that's a natural thing. Now, I do think that it will become a part of discussions when it comes to issues such as tariffs, potential sanctions, pushing back against the Chinese regime in other ways. So I think, yes, I think this will factor into that. I just don't believe that it will change the Chinese regime's behavior and that suddenly they'll become transparent.
OK, thank you, Mike. He's definitely rattling the cage, though, isn't he, Trump? And there was also that indicator of power over the Panama Canal as well in his acceptance speech once he became in that inauguration. Interesting.